All right, let's bring him in. Host of the Boston Globe Sports Report, Ben Volin, still on the scene there, Ben. And last checked, breaking news, I think the Seahawks just scored again. I mean, Ben, look, you were there. From your vantage point, what the hell happened? That game escalated quickly, my friend.
Yeah, I think Drake Maye just took another sack behind me. That's what happened, was Drake Maye's protection broke down in front of him. I'm watching a lot of the national commentary this morning, and Drake Maye is getting crushed.
Yep.
You know, this reduces his season in the eyes of many, not only this game, but the postseason run. And to me, that's nonsense. Drake Maye did not play well, but he had no protection up front. Will Campbell, the left tackle, allowed 14 pressures in the Super Bowl. It's the most allowed by any player in a game this year. There's also a couple sacks. There was a sack strip in there. This was, to me, if you remember the pandemic year when Brady won with the Bucs, that Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes was just running for his life all night and had no chance. That was Drake Maye. This loss to the Seahawks put into very stark detail how poor the Patriots' offensive line is and how much work they need to do moving forward. Because, you know, you could talk about they didn't make enough adjustments and Drake Maye wasn't seeing the field. I don't think you can make adjustments if the offensive line isn't blocking the guys up front. And whether the Seahawks were blitzing or just rushing with 4, they were getting home every single time. So to me, that's what happened, is the protection broke down, and it was really glaring how deficient the Patriots are on the offensive line.
I love that you brought up that Kansas City-Tampa Super Bowl, because what immediately happened after the fact was Kansas City put all of their eggs in the offensive line.
That's right.
Basket. It's essentially the only thing they did that offseason was upgrade the offensive line. I believe they replaced 3 of 5 starters. It ended up being 4. What do you see the Patriots doing moving forward to remedy the situation? Because you have 2 young players, but it's a matter of if they're able to stay in the roles they're in, and how do you replace these veterans? Obviously, Morgan Moses and Garrett Bradbury getting up there in age.
Well, I think Morgan Moses is set at right tackle. When they signed him, it came with 2 years fully guaranteed, and he was pretty good this year. Morgan Moses at right tackle was not a problem. So you don't have to worry about him at right tackle. And Mike Onwenu, you're probably fine with him at right guard. I think it's center, left guard, and left tackle is where you have significant questions moving forward. Frankly, I think losing the Super Bowl is there is a positive to take out of it, which is it is a reminder that the Patriots are not a finished product. This is really just year one of a rebuild, and so they do need to sink significant resources into the offensive line. Even before the Super Bowl loss, I thought this was probably a one-and-done season for Garrett Bradbury. You know, he played well this year, very consistent, but just wasn't very stout at center and got pushed back. There was a reason the Vikings let him go. So I've long thought maybe you move Jared Wilson, who struggled at times at left guard, you move him to center. And look, I was all for being patient with Will Campbell. It's only his rookie year. That can be really tough for an offensive lineman coming off a long college season. Usually the jump for offensive linemen comes in year 2, where they've had a full offseason to work out, get stronger, work on their technique. So I was all for being patient and letting Will Campbell have one more year at left tackle to prove himself. This playoff run now, and specifically this Super Bowl performance, I think may have changed my mind. I think they might have to move him to left guard. You might have to just bite your lip and do it. I know you didn't want to use the number 4 overall pick on a left guard, but I think he'd be a great left guard, and I just don't know if he's there at left tackle. You know, all throughout the postseason, they played excellent defenses. Drake Maye took at least 5 sacks in each game. You know, Will Campbell was really taken advantage of throughout the playoffs and in the Super Bowl. So I think if the Patriots are serious about trying to maintain the Super Bowl level, they'll go out and try to find a left tackle, probably in free agency, maybe in the draft. I think you got to move Will Campbell inside at this point. I think the experiment is over with.
Yeah, I mean, Ben, I'm going to give Keegan props here because he's humble and he'll never say it. But I remember all through the draft process, Keegan was saying this guy's a guard, he's not a tackle. And from what I think we all just watched, it feels like Will Campbell was a stopgap left tackle until you get a real one this offseason and you kick him in the guard, and he should be fantastic there. You said how the national media, you know, it's overreaction Monday after the Super Bowl. We get it. They're bashing Drake Maye. But just today, if we zoom out, you gave us some thoughts on Will Campbell. I was going to ask you this as a package deal, Will Campbell and Drake Maye. But where are you with these guys? It sounds like Campbell is guard. Where are you with Drake Maye mentally today after what you just watched?
I'm not down on Drake Maye. I thought his season was tremendous. The growth he showed from year 1 to year 2 was phenomenal. He deserved to be an MVP finalist. I voted for him. I do not regret that pick at all. Of course, remember, this is a regular season award, so we voted before the playoffs. And, I know the numbers took a big dip in the playoffs. His completion percentage, he led the league at 72% all year. He was phenomenal. And then we get to the playoffs, and all of his games are under 60%. His passer rating nosedive, his QBR. But to me, I don't put that on Drake. I put that on the offensive line. Drake was running for his life, I thought, playing all these excellent defenses. 4 defenses ranked in the top 6 that they played in the playoffs, and he was just running for his life. 5 sacks in each game, the left side of the line. You heard the Seahawks all last night after the game saying we knew that they had some youngers on the left side of the line. We knew that we could attack them and take advantage of it. So to me, there were variables. There was bad protection. It was bad weather in all these playoff games, playing really good defenses. And I don't think he had great, weapons around him. This is a unit that we said all before the season that it was going to be one of the worst receiver units in the league. Now, it turned out to be a lot better than that, but they still didn't have elite talent like Matthew Stafford had around Drake Maye. So I know he's so disappointed. He didn't play well. He looked skittish in the pocket. There were throws to be made. He didn't make them. I still don't put that on Drake Maye. I think he's a tremendous young quarterback. I think he proved so much this year. And honestly, I think this experience in the playoffs now is only going to help him going forward.
Ben, I want to take advantage of the fact that you were there. You were in the building. You were in the locker room after the game. We were on the couch, so we were able to see what happened on the field, what happened at the podium. Drake Maye, obviously, extremely emotional. Mike Vrabel even had a little bit of a glimmer in his eye. He was very disappointed, obviously. But inside the locker room after the game, what was the feeling? What was the atmosphere? And on top of that, Will Campbell, a guy we've talked about, decides not to speak to media. I think that's something that kind of gets on our nerves a little bit.
Yes.
How do you feel about that? And then what was the overall vibe in there?
Yeah, that was disappointing. I think it was my tweet from the locker room saying that Will Campbell declined to speak to reporters after a couple attempts. That's kind of what blew the story up. I was disappointed in that as well. All of his teammates were standing at their lockers and talking. I know it's a super disappointing night. I know Will Campbell was devastated with the result and how he played, but everyone's doing it in the locker room. You got to just stand there and take it and answer a few questions, and then that's that. I think it's the culture of a lot of these guys coming from college where they're so coddled at these elite programs like LSU, where they can tell reporters there, I'm not talking today, and that's that. Well, in the pros now, you're supposed to act like a pro. And so I was disappointed that Will Campbell decided not to speak to the media. All he had to do was answer a few questions, and that would have been that. Otherwise, though, most guys did stand there and answer questions and were accountable. Stephon Diggs, I thought, did a good job of that, standing there answering a lot of questions calmly. It's a tough scene. Garrett Bradbury, you could tell, had spent a lot of time crying. He was all red in the face. And, for Garrett Bradbury, that could be his last NFL game. Who knows? So you really do feel for the guys. Not as awkward as the Super Bowl locker room after the Eagles lost, the game that Malcolm Butler got benched. That was tough, man. That was, you could cut the tension with a knife in that locker room. All the reporters walking on eggshells, not quite sure how to approach guys. That was an emotionally tough night. This was very tough as well, but I think the blowout made it a little easier for guys to stand there and talk because it's not like it came down to one player or anything like that. But, a tough night overall, and it just hits you like a ton of bricks because you've had this long season and you always have something next to look forward to. And then there's just a finality to the Super Bowl that I think can be very emotional and tough for some guys to handle.
Yeah, Ben, look, the optimism, I think, too, is that this team will be back at some point. We know the cap space is there. Drake Maye's young. You can always revamp an offensive line. In fact, my friend, I'm holding an offseason wish list as we speak. I want to go get A.J. Brown, okay? The writing's on the wall in Philly with him. A lot of people unhappy. Go get the guy. You need a game changer. I think we all saw that last night. And then I would overpay for Rasheed Walker. I would give him whatever he wants, get a left tackle in here, revamp this offensive line. As we head to the offseason, what's your wish list? How does this team get back to a Super Bowl quickly, Ben?
So my wish list is not what you said. I do not think they need to be trading draft picks and getting veterans. If you can get A.J. Brown, now A.J. Brown's expensive. He's $29 million next year, and he's phenomenal. And he goes back with Vrabel, and he'd be terrific. But if you have to give up a second-round pick, a first-round pick? No way. The Patriots are not in a position. They're not one player away. They need to build this team from the ground up. They hit the jackpot this year. Everything fell right. But they're drafting. They still need to continue to draft more, especially on the defensive side of the ball. The last 2 years, the top of the drafts have been all offense. They've neglected defense in the draft the last 2 years. Craig Woodson, the fourth-round pick last year, is like the only pick they've made on defense. So they need to use their draft picks. They need young talent. Most of it needs to come on defense. They need to keep going on the offensive line. Now, free agency, I'm all for it because it's just money. You don't have to give up draft picks. So, yes, sign a left tackle. I don't really know who's out there yet, but you need to – free agency, great. Go out and spend more of Robert Kraft's money. But I would not be trading draft picks. This is again, I think it's in a sense okay and good that they lost the Super Bowl because it shows people they're not there. This is still year one of a rebuild. They exceeded expectations this year. They need to keep building organically through the draft, especially on defense where it's a lot of veteran players and a lot of free agents.
All right, Ben, hey, you did a great job all week. Thank you for the coverage. Thanks for coming on. Hopefully you're back covering this team again next season. We'll be watching you on the Boston Globe Sports Report. Thank you, Ben.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, guys.
Keegs, he didn't like my offseason plan. I thought it was perfect. I thought it was perfect.
I got to be honest, we've done this a few times throughout the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Me and you are always on the opposite when it comes to the offseason. You're like, spend money, get rid the draft. I don't want to talk about the draft. You know me. I want everything to be focused on the draft. I like Ben's explanation to it, though. This is the first year of a rebuild. And you go start paying big money for older players.
Sure.
You're shortening your own window. That's just not smart business. It's never been the way I would approach it. So it's just, I understand where he's coming from. I understand where you're coming from. I want to get back to the Super Bowl, right?
Yes.
Everybody wants to get back to the Super Bowl.
Next year, Keegan.
But do you want a longer window, a larger window, or do you want to just kind of pigeonhole everything into next year? I see where he's coming from.
617-582-CHAT. What do you say? You with me? I'm trying to roll that dice here. Keegs wants to play this long game. Ben wants to play this long game. Playing chess, not checkers. I always respect that. What say you? I say this. We're on to Fort Myers. That's a wrap for us here on Boston Has Entered the Chat. It's baseball season now. Thanks for the memories, though, Pats. We love you. We'll be back here on Boston Has Entered the Chat Wednesday, 4 o'clock. Join us then. Peace.